Hi, it's Laura at Aquamarine18 Tarot and Books. Thanks for stopping by my channel today. Welcome or welcome back. I'm here with a VR to Julie over at Peekaboo Rose. I will link Julie's video in the description box below. Definitely go check it out. The one that I am responding to here is a video called Is Tarot Fatigue Inevitable? I thought that this was a really interesting question, an interesting video, and a good topic for discussion. And so I thought I would share some thoughts. I went and looked up the word fatigue in an online dictionary just to ground my thinking, and to have a place to start. But other than that, this is mostly going to be pretty spontaneous. I will share that the definitions of fatigue that I wrote down are weariness from bodily or mental exertion, a cause of weariness, slow ordeal or exertion, to exhaust the strength of, to become tired or exhausted, a tiring activity or effort. These were the most relevant ones that I found as definitions of fatigue. So this is kind of the terrain that I'm thinking about in terms of tarot fatigue. And, I suspect that when we're using this language, most of us are probably thinking something along these lines, right? And I just share these because I think I'm a nerd and I think word definitions are always useful. So I would say based on this that I have never experienced tarot fatigue. I've been reading seriously and studying tarot seriously for over a decade. I would say since maybe 2014 or so. And in that time, I've never experienced what I would call tarot fatigue. I have definitely taken breaks from tarot in the sense of there having been, a week here or 2 weeks there where I haven't picked up a deck of cards. But for me, at least so far, that has never been about being exhausted by or weary of the cards themselves or of tarot reading itself as an activity. For me, when I've taken that kind of time from tarot, it has sometimes been because I've been fatigued by something else, like, maybe illness or grief or feeling burnt out by my job or school. I was just kind of in the tail end of grad school at the time that I started, taking up tarot in a more serious way. And that, of course, took a lot of time and energy. I have also definitely, taken a week here, a week there, where I haven't read tarot because I've been focused on something else. Like when I have done things like take a course in another divination system, like take a geomancy course, for example. When I do that, I tend to want to really focus on whatever that thing is that I'm studying, if it's a kind of synchronous, fixed length of time learning experience. So in those instances, I have kind of put the tarot to one side, to focus on that new thing that I'm learning. But again, I feel like a break need not be indicative of tarot fatigue in that case. Like, it's nothing about tarot or my feelings about tarot that was causing me to focus on something else in that moment. It was just curiosity and interest in something else, right? Being really curious about Ogham and wanting to spend a bunch of time learning Ogham was not a product of tarot fatigue. It's just a, chasing another interest. I'm very much a kind of multi-system diviner, I would say. And so definitely I've had those kinds of times. But I've never felt, the sense that these definitions of fatigue imply this sense of kind of heaviness or weighed downness or exhaustedness by tarot itself. For me, if I've taken, a step away from tarot or taken a little break, that has always been, in my case, because of some other factor. Either just because, I'm just really busy doing this other thing and I'm really focused on this other thing, and that's taking my my time and my kind of capacity, or because I've been unwell, physically or mentally, in some way. In a couple of instances, I would say maybe because my my routine has been disrupted in some way. Like Julie mentioned, travel as an example, when one might not read tarot so much if you just have a really packed itinerary kind of thing. Definitely I've had experiences like that, but again, I don't think of any of this in terms of tarot fatigue. And in terms of the question of whether tarot fatigue is inevitable, there's a part of me that just wants to say, well, if it was going to happen to me, it would have happened already, which may or may not be true. But I feel like for me personally, tarot fatigue really doesn't feel likely, because tarot is not something that anyone is making me do. Tarot is something that I practice and study for myself, and is a part of my life in a real way. I struggle to even use the word hobby to describe tarot at this point. Tarot is a part of my life. Like being a druid is a part of my life, right? And it's one that I've chosen, and it's one that I keep choosing every time that I pick it up, When I think about fatigue, I think about like things like workplace burnout, right? Or caregiver fatigue, like these kinds of things, right? That these definitions of fatigue might speak to in terms of being exhausted by something, finding something really tiring, finding something to cause a level of tiredness in oneself. And I've definitely felt that with other things in my life. I actually took a mental health leave from work last year because of feeling very close to burning out. And I could definitely use the language of fatigue, in that context. But tarot is for me. Tarot is not something that I find tiring. If I did, I would maybe just do it a little bit less, right? I find it hard to imagine experiencing this kind of fatigue with something that I love in the way that I love tarot. I've definitely maybe felt something like fleeting momentary fatigue around tarot in very particular circumstances, like at the end of a 3-hour marathon session of reading for the public at a market, Most of the time with that, I feel quite energized. But at times I'm also like, okay, well, I just want to go home and not touch tarot for the rest of the day, That was a lot of reading kind of thing. But again, not in a way that would be something that I would describe as oh, I'm tired of tarot now. It doesn't feel fatigue. It doesn't feel like fatigue in this kind of way, in that sense. I have gone back and forth over the, decade plus of time I've read tarot for myself seriously on things like daily draws. Right now, I very much have a daily draw practice. I only missed one day in all of 2025. I write down my card, or cards. It's usually cards, plural. I missed one day. And that was the day after a massive loss. But other than that, I've stuck with the daily practice. And it is a daily practice that includes other things besides tarot. I have a daily kind of shielding, protective, energetically protective practice. that comes from my Druidry order, and a couple of other things that I like to do daily, that I do in a particular order at a particular time of day. That's very routine at this point. And Julie mentioned this in her video too, in the sense of, picking up tarot is something she does with her morning coffee in a very kind of routinized way. And it does feel like that routine, but it's also like, it's not a thing that feels fatiguing to me, or like it has kind of fatigue potential, because it's a routine that I picked. It's a routine that I pick every time that I continue it, that I could absolutely choose to do otherwise. I may at some point decide that daily draw is not something that I'd like to do, and that's completely fine. I feel fine about that possibility. But no one's making me do it. For me, when I feel what I understand to be fatigue, this I'm being like really tired of doing something, being exhausted by something, finding something exhausting, it has tended to be something like my day job or school at different times, being in school and feeling like really just, oh my goodness, I need the break, the summer can't come fast enough, it's been a really heavy semester, like that kind of fatigue. And of course, like, nobody made me go to school either, at least not as an adult. But that level of work, can certainly feel tiring in that kind of way. And tarot has never felt that way for me. I could imagine tarot fatigue if tarot were my primary source of income, or indeed a source of income at all for me. Because I think that might create a kind of pressure around it that I don't experience right now. I have made a little bit of money from reading at markets and things like that here and there, but never anything substantial, and never anything that I was really reliant on in terms of my livelihood, right? It's just always been kind of a fun thing to do quarterly. I could imagine developing a sense of tarot fatigue, or tarot tube fatigue for that matter, if I was reliant on tarot as my core source of income, or to pay my bills in some way or another, that I felt like I really couldn't step back. I couldn't pace myself because I need to, to make ends meet in that kind of way. I could imagine that for sure. Because it would feel harder to take a break. Of course it would, right? Because of the pressures of capitalism, it would feel harder to take a break in that case. But thus far, I have never experienced tarot fatigue, and I don't think it is inevitable for everyone, we'll say. Maybe for some folks, tarot fatigue, or like hobby fatigue, is a part of their regular experience, and does feel inevitable because it's a thing that they've experienced. And I don't want to suggest that that's not true, or that people who've experienced tarot fatigue are doing anything wrong. I don't assume that at all. But for me personally, I can't imagine feeling tarot fatigue. So it doesn't feel inevitable. So those are my thoughts on that. Thank you to Julie for, creating this interesting topic to discuss and putting your thoughts out there. I've enjoyed considering this topic very much. And I really like these kinds of, they're conversational videos that like invite VRs in a sense, but aren't tags per se, like they're not lists of prompts, but kind of themes, as a type of tarot tube content. And Julie has put out a few of these recently that I've really, really enjoyed watching. I think because I really just like talking about tarot a lot, and these kinds of, chatty, topical videos appeal to me as a rambly person. But also, like, they feel like the kinds of conversations we would have just kind of, on Zoom together, or sitting together at a pub and talking about shared interests, and I really, really like that in the tarot tube community. So thank you so much for watching. Let me know, in the comments if you've experienced tarot fatigue, what that has been like for you, if you'll feel comfortable sharing that, and any other thoughts you might have. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you again soon.